Hi, I'm Chris, welcome back to FRAG-MENTAL, thank you for joining me. I'm always trying to look out for you guys in these videos. I'm always trying to give you some good recommendations to look into. In this video, I'm going to recommend some designer fragrances that punch way higher than their price tags. Here are some awesome designer fragrances that smell more niche than designer. Do we really need to make this distinction between niche and designer fragrances? Aren't all fragrances just fragrances? Well, yes we do, because if we didn't, then YouTubers wouldn't be able to have a designer list and a niche list, so we get a bit more out of it. But forget about the YouTubers for a while. Do you as consumers need to know the difference between designer and niche? What is the difference between designer and niche? Essentially, the main difference is that niche fragrances are made by a company that only make fragrances, or at least that is their first thing. Designer fragrances are made by brands that design clothes, makeup, make other things, as well as having a line of fragrances. So designer fragrances like Dior, Chanel, they all have their fashion lines, but then a niche fragrance brand like Parfum de Marly or Roger Parfums, for example, don't make makeup or clothes, they only make fragrances. But there is no rule book for any of this. This is just what people seem to have arrived at, and there are differences of opinion. Some people don't believe in designer or niche. Now some people think that some niche brands have got so big that they're no longer niche because the word niche represents something that is very small and will only appeal to a small number of people. So huge brands like Roger Parfums, by Kilian, Parfum de Marly, are they still niche? Who knows? Something that I do think you generally find across the board is niche fragrances cost more, generally, not all the time, but generally for the most part. And also, a lot of niche fragrances can take a few more risks. They can maybe be a bit creative, and in doing so, create some fragrances that are a little more complex, a bit more interesting, make more of a statement. They're not trying to appeal to absolutely everyone and be too generic and mass appealing like designer fragrances can be. But that isn't the case, because in this video, I have some designer fragrances that I think you could mistake for a niche fragrance. A brand that I think is really good at this, pushing the boundaries of creativity for designer perfumery, is Gucci. And one of my favorites of all time, one of my favorite designers, is Gucci Guilty Absolute. Very impactful smell. It's got this dry, woody spiciness, this intense dry, woody spiciness, actually, to the point where it could be a little bit divisive. I wouldn't call this fragrance mass appealing. In fact, it kind of smells like a hospital corridor. It's got that antiseptic kind of smell, that TCP smell. There's definitely something a little bit medicinal about it, but despite all that, it draws me in. Maybe I like the smell of hospitals, I don't know, but there's something that I really enjoy about this fragrance. I love the fact that it pushes the boundaries. I love the creativity. I really enjoy fragrances that allow me to stand out and make an impact if I'm in that kind of mood, or if I'm going to that sort of situation, that kind of event. It's strong, it's long lasting, it's complex, it's different. It isn't generic in the slightest, and that is what I really love about Gucci Guilty Absolute. Gucci made a great one with this, and I still can't actually believe that they ever made this. A designer brand making fragrance that smells like this. Good job, Gucci. Good job. Another fragrance that is right up my street, maybe yours too, is one that punches even higher above its price tag. From Salvatore Ferragamo, this is Uomo Signature. This is a beautiful, rich, indulgent, gourmandish, dessert-like fragrance that's also spicy and sweet. I love spices. Tick. I love a bit of robust leather. Tick. I am a huge coffee fan. In fact, look at this. I'm just drinking a coffee right now out of my Starbucks mug. That's how much of a coffee fan I am. And we got roasted coffee beans, so there's a lot of reasons why I dig this fragrance. It does have structure and complexity, but it's not challenging at all. It's not divisive, but then it doesn't smell generic. It's one of those fragrances that just perfectly straddles that line between higher quality creativity and being mass appealing enough for a designer brand. What makes this even better is the price. Depending on where you look online, you can pick this up for about £30 to £40 for the quality that you're getting. Even for the presentation, I think the presentation looks better than a lot of designer fragrance brands. For the quality, for the creativity, for the pure joy of what this fragrance brings, it's well worth the money, and I think it smells more niche than designer. Boy, this next one is really punching, because it is even lower in its price. And this smells even more niche than the last one. Bentley for Men Intense. This one also has a bit of intense, dry woodiness, but it's also got incense, and anytime there's incense in a fragrance, that just gets me over the line from designer to niche. What else have we got? There's some spices, there's some punchy black pepper that gives it a really lovely pop, there's some leather, we've got that robust leather again, and rum. Now, you know I love a bit of booze in my fragrances, and this one has a beautiful, smooth rum note. So you do have that slight abrasive leather smell, but it's smoothed out by the other notes, by the rum. This is a grown-up fragrance. This is proper perfumery. It's got this sophisticated smell. Maybe it does lean a little more mature. I'm not sure if it's sort of sweet and juvenile enough for a younger guy to carry off, but if you are, I guess, 30 plus, let's say, then I think you could easily rock this. Put a suit on, maybe even hire a Bentley for the day. Maybe you own a Bentley. If you do, you know what fragrance you should be wearing. And is Bentley a designer brand? I feel like they design cars. Their first thing isn't making fragrances, that is a secondary line of their business. So I'm calling Bentley a designer fragrance, and also price-wise, definitely in line with the cheaper end of designer fragrances actually, because you can pick this up for between 20, 25 pounds for the smell, for the quality of this, for the creativity, the complexity. You are paying way less than you should be for juice, this quality. This definitely smells way more niche than designer. If you've not tried Bentley for Men Intense, give it a sniff, check it out. Stunning value. If you love fragrance as much as I do, head over to my online store, luxparfum.co.uk. You'll find my favourite brands, plus brands you can't find anywhere else in the UK. Link is in the description. A brand that I keep mentioning in a lot of my videos recently is a brand that is killing it. That's why I keep mentioning it. Each fragrance they release tends to be really good. The most recent is Boss Bottled Absolute. Fantastic fragrance, but this one was last year, I think it was, and this is Boss Bottled Elixir. I remember when this came out and was released, I smelled this and I thought, no way, is this a designer fragrance by Boss? This smells way more niche and creative than most designer fragrances smell. Definitely bossing it now with their fragrance releases. Each one is pushing the boundaries. Each one could be mistaken for a niche fragrance in terms of the quality, in terms of the way that the fragrance is structured. They don't smell generic at all. The opening of this fragrance is absolutely stunning because it combines incense with cardamom. You get that cool, sharp, punchy, poppy spiciness of the cardamom. You get the mysterious, rich, smooth quality of the frankincense. It's a stunning smell. Don't get me wrong, it's not challenging to wear. This is the beauty of these fragrances, is they are straddling that line. They're pushing the boundaries. They're not challenging, they're not hard to wear. They're maybe not as generic and mass appealing as other designer fragrances, but they are still very wearable and they are mass appealing enough. And I think brands should be doing that. I think they should be pushing the boundaries a little bit more. I'd love to see a brand like Jean Paul Gaultier do that a little bit. I loved La Mal Elixir. I thought that was a great release, but I would like to see their next release just take that mass appeal and push it a little bit more into more creative territory, because let's face it, some of their releases can be a little bit lackluster. If they can be as brave as Boss are being, they could create some stunning scents every release. So there you go, JPG. I know you're probably watching this video, so there's just a little bit of information for you to throw out at the board meeting next time you're talking about releasing a fragrance. I'm sure you'll take everything I've said on board. Anyway, back to Boss. They're killing it. This is a great release. I would smell this off a strip blind if I didn't know what it was, and I would probably say niche, not designer. I just mentioned I was a little bit surprised that a big designer brand like Boss could release a fragrance that smells so creative, that pushes the boundaries. Well, let's talk about this one, shall we? Because this one didn't just surprise me, it blew my frickin' mind. From Paco Rabanne, it's 1 Million Golden Oud. This smells so niche and complex for a Rabanne fragrance, possibly because I think it's a Middle Eastern tie-in, so it is designed to smell like one of these heavy, rich, indulgent, oudy Middle Eastern fragrances. I love that Rabanne went all in on this one. They committed. They had a brief, and I feel like this has passed through all the stages that a designer brand would carry a fragrance through before it actually gets to the market, and I feel like this retained the original idea that whoever it was at Rabanne that had this, or maybe it was just the submission from the perfumer, but I feel like there's been no compromise in terms of what the creator of this scent wanted it to be, because damn, we got some oud here. This is funkier oud than in a lot of niche oud fragrances. Oud for greatness? The oud in this is definitely greater. There is a bit of funk, I'm not gonna lie. This definitely smells Middle Eastern funky oud, but not too much. Just a smidge of, you know, that little cheeky fecal oud smell, but not so much that it's off-putting or challenging to wear, just enough that gives it some attitude, that gives it some backbone and strength, and makes you think that this is a serious fragrance. You wear this scent and it's going to get noticed, it's going to make a statement. Rabanne definitely committed with this one. And of course the oud is balanced out by the other notes that are supporting. There's some spices and some creamy sandalwood, so it does get smooth and softened around the edges, so it's not hard to wear at all. There's some leather as well that's just further weaponizing the strength of this fragrance. It's so good. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention that I get a little bit of a tobacco vibe from this, like a bit of a sweet honeyed tobacco. It's not listed, it's probably not in here, but I do get that vibe, and I love tobacco so much. That's probably another reason why I enjoy this one so much. Well done for letting a perfumer's vision be fully realized and having the bravery to throw that out onto the market. If I smelled someone wearing this in public, I wouldn't think it was a 1 million. I'd think it was a niche. Now, I am guilty of top and tailing this video with Gucci fragrances. That was a good one. I just had to put this one in. It's an easy wear. It's not challenging. It's not very complex, but the quality of this reminds me more of a niche fragrance. This is Jpg Elixir. This is such an elegant, sophisticated scent. Perfect for a wedding day scent, I would say, with its white florals, its creamy vanilla, and its easygoing powderiness. I was surprised when I first smelled this. I picked it up at duty free at the airport, and I thought this was going to be some intense, hard-hitting. I thought it was going to be challenging in the same way that Gucci Absolute was. I thought if Gucci had the bravery to make Absolute, I thought if they're making an Elixir, they're gonna do something pretty intense with it. They didn't. It's not complicated, it's not complex or challenging, but after I got over that, I really like what they did with this. It's a soft, powdery fragrance. The white florals are elegant but never feminine, which is good because this is a fragrance designed for men. The spices pop beautifully. There's iris in here. It's just a really well composed fragrance. One of my favorite niche fragrances is Reflection Man, and this is not exactly the same as that, but it's in the same genre. It's got these powdery white florals. It's got some creaminess to it. It's easy to wear. It's got that white kind of summery feel. Probably a little bit sweeter than Reflection Man, but you could wear it for similar occasions, and I think the quality is comparable between this and Reflection Man. Reflection Man, stunning fragrance. Pretty pricey though, costs a lot. This one, still quite pricey for a designer fragrance. I think full retail is £124 for this 50 ml bottle. I think that's come down to more like £100, which is still quite pricey for a 50 ml, but what you're getting is really good stuff. It's niche quality, but it's cheaper than niche. If you've not checked out Jpg Elixir, this is one of the best Elixir releases of this recent Elixir trend. You can see from the level in this bottle, I've given it some decent wearings. I will continue to give it some decent wearings because, to me, this one smells more niche than designer. Good job again, Gucci. So there may be some fragrances out there that I've missed. Maybe I've got them, maybe I don't. If you can recommend or suggest or drop down in the comments some designer fragrances that you think punch higher than their price tag, that you think smell more niche than designer. If someone smelled you wearing it in the street, they would perhaps think it was a niche fragrance rather than designer. Drop those down below because I'd be super interested to find out from you which others out there, and the cheaper the better. That's gonna do it for this one. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit like, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you do all that, you'll see me in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.